to ask you. I know that many of you too have a million questions. But I am a historian, and before I launch into asking you questions about the development of the Black Panther Party, I really want to know what helped develop you as a man. So can you tell us a little bit about what life was like growing up in your early years in Texas?
As I wrote in my autobiography, the title of that autobiography is called A Lonely Rage. I get a lot about my early life. My father built our first house in Port Arthur, Texas from the ground. My father was a master carpenter and builder. In fact, my grandfather, Arch Seale, built the town of Weirgate, Texas, just 20 miles east of Jasper, Texas. My mother and father both were born in Jasper, Texas. And I grew up as a young kid of a carpenter and a builder who, after we moved from Port Arthur and went to San Antonio doing the early wartime jobs in World War II, and then we wound up moving to Berkeley, California. My father was out here at the Oakland Army Base 8 months earlier. But I was 8 years of age in September when we came here in Berkeley, California, and we went to what is known now as University Village over in Albany and Berkeley. It was then called Cordonesis Village. And those government projects is where we lived and resided until I was 18 years of age. Texas,
Still Texas.
I didn't hear any rhythm and blues music on the radio. You know, I heard a lot of good old country and western, you know. Like, I'm in love with a beautiful gal, say, what's the matter with me? You know, I raised up off of that. Until I got into, now that was the old rhythmatic form of music that went on in the church house, with that radio. But it was later in Berkeley, California, that I was a young man growing up, having fights with a guy named Billy Rogers. Billy Rogers was a bully in our community. You know? He has a lot to do with the way I ran the Black Panther Party, because when he was cheating us in marbles at 11 years of age, you know, we'd say no steelies. You know, when you shoot with a steely, you know, you hit too many marbles. So we had a rule was he pulled a steely out and started shooting all the marbles out. Billy, give me my marbles back. Boom, boom, boom. Billy knocked me down. And I ran away crying, and I got me a stick, and I came to running behind the tree and ran up behind him and hit him across the back with the stick 2 or 3 times. And Billy, you know, he was a little bigger. He jumped up and hit me and knocked me in the ground. And then his mother upstairs and my mother downstairs came out and broke us up and told us to stop that fight. And I told Billy, next time you hit me, I'm going to stab you with my knife. You have to remember, we were raised up in those times, you know, like Audie Murphy was our hero, you know, us little kids, you know, it's the 40s, you know. Audie Murphy was a war hero, and we knew all about him, you know, so when we would play cops and robbers or have rubber gun wars, we had rubber gun wars. And since I had carpentry skills and carpentry tools in and around and about the house, like what my father was, we not only had the rubber guns, you know, I built us a rubber cannon with wheels on it. So we could drag it. So I'm just saying, you know, that was one of the toughest things that hit me right around that time, turning 11 years old, turning 12. Is in one of those rubber gun walls, I had retreated back to the courtyard area to climb the big tree to get more rubber gun ammunition. And as I hit the ground and was coming down, I heard a loud bang, pow, sound like a shot. Well, I knew how big rifles shot because I had been hunting with my father at least twice prior to that. And I'm going on almost 12 now. And I ran over to the clothesline fence, and in between each big board and the clothesline, it was that wide I could see right through it. And a black man came up and was beating, and this woman beat her, chasing her and beat her. And it was awful. I hated it. And then suddenly a car drove him across the street, and a black man, a soldier in his uniform, his army uniform, jumped out of the car, running across the street. You can't treat my sister like that. And he turned his Army 45, and he was pistol whipping the woman. boom, 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 and shot the soldier dead. Now, to me, this is the ultimate bully. You know, this is something for me. Because Billy Rogers was one thing, I would handle him. When he would turn around and take a rubber gun thing and tie a bent nail in it, and a knot, and then stretch it, and then come up to your face, he wanted to injure you and hurt you. When I look back on that, this is a sociopath, I guess. You know, and I would argue with him about that, you know. And then later on, after Billy Rogers beat me up that first time, I was always smart, you know. I knew sooner or later I was going to get him with Billy Rogers, so I would hide rocks and certain sticks and stuff in certain places. So if you come upon me, I retreat to my ammunition. So that was growing up. That was tough, you know. And finally, you know, I started growing up some more. In growing up some more, I could never deal with the gangs that tried to prop up.
And this is after you moved to Berkeley.
This is all after I moved to Berkeley. We're talking about from 8 years of age. Then by 1950, I'm going to Burbank Junior High School. And then sometime after that, I'm in Berkeley High School. By the time I hit Berkeley High School, all right, I'm an architect. My father was a carpenter and a builder. So by the time I was 18, I was already a top-flight architect. In other words, every mechanical and architectural drawing complete with auxiliary views and three-dimensional sectional views, I got A's in that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So that was me. But in machine shop, I got my instructor to let me do projects other than make a hammer or something. I want to do a no-go gauge. I come in, I draw it, etc. Give it to my instructor. Mr. Lynn says, okay, Bobby, you can do this, blah, 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 blah. So one day, after I started running with my other buddy, my friend, because we started identifying with the Lakota peoples. The Lakota, if you know anything, is Native Americans. That's their true name. The word Sioux is a French word. It means cutthroat. But the true name of the so-called Sioux Native Americans, their real true name is the Lakota, as the derivative or etymological connection with North Dakota and South Dakota, okay? But I'm saying, that's who we identify with. So I walked in one day after seeing the movie starring Alan Ladd, The Iron Mistress. And I had drawn up in three-dimensional everything and several different drawings and showings this Iron Mistress knife, the Bowie knife. And walked in and told my instructor, I want to make 4 of these knives. 4, huh, Bobby? He says, yes, but he always loved my ideas. He says, you have to make 5. I said, 5? He says, yes, we're going to need one for display here at the school. So I fashioned, tempered, went through the whole process, you know, and made those knives, you know. So I had extracurricular projects, but this time it was connected with me rejecting gangs, and me and Steve identified heavily with the Lakota, to the point that we had to ride horses. We wanted to ride horses just like the Native Americans we'd see in the movies. So behind Berkeley Hills over there, East Bay, from El Sabrani all the way back, there was 2 or 3 ranches, small ranches that had 2 or 3 horses and corrals. So we got makeshift bridles, rawhide and stuff, and snuck over there at night and get a horse out, put the bridles on, swing up on the horse by the mane of the horse, and ride him bareback in the middle of the night. You know, and then let the horses go and come down to University of California when we come out there, going home at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. After a couple of years of that, we got arrested. You know, a curfew, not the horses. The horses, when we get the horses out of one of those corrals and go back 3 or 4 weeks later, the same horse is back again, of course, you know, so we made dramatically there. We on freight trains and attempted to go to the land of the Lakota at one point there, and then we got arrested in the freight yard 25, 30 miles north of Sacramento. And this guy was just like Barney Fife, that you see. You know, this, I mean, because we had these Bowie knives, and I made tomahawks, you know what I mean? And we got these vests, you know, these leather vests, and our leather jackets and stuff. And this guy, Barney, is a real Barney Fife type guy. Drop them hatchets. He pulled his gun out on us. So we dropped the hatchet. This guy's going crazy anyway. So the guy at the office was similar to Andy, who was much more reasonable. I mean, this is a real life situation. You're arrested in a freight yard. It's a freight yard police station. Anyway, my father came and got us. And my father was a farm labor contractor by this time, too. You might want to ask another question.
I don't know when to stop with all this talk of tomahawks and everything. It's pretty great. So you've taken us sort of through early years in Texas, moving here to the Bay Area. Did you like high school?
I liked high school as long as I could do architecture, design, what have you, in those classes. Math, I always got A's in those classes. English, I always got C's in those classes. I could never rise above a C. I learned to like a little history, you know, more so at that time, because then I started studying Native American history a lot at that time. And I did learn it, but I knew nothing about African American history at this period, you know, not really. I mean, my reference to Africa was Tarzan sort of ran Africa. That's what was in the movies and stuff, you know. So I liked high school, you know. I went to 3 days before graduation and I couldn't graduate. 3 days before graduation. They put me in rest gym because I'd been hit by a car when I was 13. And even though I could run 5 miles a night, I could not convince the people at the school that I could play sports, etc., and so on. And I was only allowed rest gym and swimming. And I got in an argument with the teacher, and the Bowie knives I'd made, which was a year old, I happened to have it with me. And I got so angry at him, I walked out of the rest gym class, and this was about 10 days before graduation, because my picture is in the Berkeley High Old Pod as a graduate. And I was so mad I hacked on that wooden banister, pop, 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 3 times. And then of course they called me in and then said I wasn't graduating. Then I went back to Berkeley High after I come out of the Air Force. I got my high school diploma and Mary College.
Thank you. You just traveled in time for us, about 10 years or so.
Yeah, so it's a lot of times here. I mean, I'm not going to tell you about my love affairs.
Some things should be off limits.
Yeah.
So you just shy of officially graduating from high school, right? Then you enter into the Air Force.
United States Air Force, 4 years, United States Air Force.
Almost 4 years.
Honor student in tech school, instructor repairing high performance aircraft.
Come out of the Air Force. I hear you tried your hand at stand-up comedy for a while.
Well, yeah, actually, I was in the Air Force. In the Air Force, I besides being a structural repairman in that high-tech field, once I need work in the day, I went over to the service club. So I bought me a brand new set of drums. I was becoming a jazz drummer then at this time. So all of those guys who played with the service club and stuff, you know, I would rehearse with them, etc. And then I became an extra drummer, you know what I mean? And then I bought this set of drums right here in Oakland, California, and took them back with me after I got on leave. And then, of course, as it went down through that period, now I've passed a 3-level skill level, 5-level skill level, 7 skill level, and I'm still only a corporal. And that means I can move all the way up to being a master sergeant, you know, and but I'm still a corporal and I'm in charge and I'm lead man for a crew 9, 10, or 11 in any dock where we had a B-52 bomber. The B-52 bomber had 500 gigs on it. My methodology of working, I could clean that plane up with the real outstanding gigs in a matter of 2 weeks, and that's what I did. So they were getting ready to make me a sergeant, but this other guy wanted his buddy to get that promotion, and not me. Everybody loved to work with me because I asked my master sergeant, who commanded the sergeant, I says, look, when I clean the plane up, I'm going to have the authority to give one or two of these guys a day off or two. So everybody always wanted to work with me because my method was to get everybody to do their job, get your gig, I'll inspect your gigs, then I'll bring the main inspector behind me, and so on, blah, 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 so I could clean the plane up. And anyway, this other guy, one morning he walks in and he says, "You little black nigger." And he walked past me. This is before we got to working in the shop, you know what I mean? And these are the days, you know, you don't have the politics to understand what to do, but that upset me, would upset me. And it did upset me to the point I grabbed a piece of metal extrusion and ran up behind him, and I didn't read it. The guy sort of saw me coming, and as he bent over, he let me hit him. He didn't fight back. I started beating him all that. Little did I realize we're in Rapid City, South Dakota. This is where the Hawk is. The Hawk, you know who the Hawk is? The hardcore cold weather winter that ever send your name to the governor? This guy was all padded down with double pad parkas, flight pants, stick fight pants. And he tricked me. And the next thing I know, I'm going to the stockade for 30 days. They busted me, etc., because I got mad because this guy called. So that's where he tricked me into that. And then, of course, I got out of the stockade in good time in 25 days for the 30-day thing. And what happened? Sergeant Lawson needed them planes out of the dock, so he gave me my first strike back, then he gave me my second strike back 3 months later. And I was back again, but then I decided I wasn't going to make a career. And of course, what happens here is I go home and buy this set of drums. I want to be a jazz drummer besides this. And it was almost, I guess I didn't have less than a year to go. And I got behind on a couple of payments. And some collection agency downtown was after me, and I was saying, okay, I'm trying to get the money. They wanted the balance of everything on the drums, not just an updated payment. And then I found out that or at least the rumor was, and everybody seemed to confirm for me, that my commanding officers, his relatives owned the collection agency down south, his civilian relatives. And then he called me in his office, threatening to send me to stockade, and I cussed him out. I went into a rage. Well, you know about this history. You know about me cussing out the judge in the Great Chicago 7 conspiracy trial because he violated the 6th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America that says I have a right to my legal counsel of choice when I asked him to let me defend myself, and he denied that motion. By denying that motion, you know. But anyway, I was kicked out of the United States Air Force after 3 years, 10 months, and 11 days. I only enlisted for 4 years. 3 years, 10 months, and 11 days. I was kicked out of the United States Air Force with a bad conduct discharge. That's a 3917. Not a dishonorable. Dishonorable is a 3918. Bad conduct and undesirable 3917. 3916s is medical or honorable. So you know the categories. But anyway.
So after you are let go from the Air Force, you wind up. After you're given the boot from the Air Force.
I was in the stockade with the 2 months preceding the trial, 5 months and 7 months. And finally, when they let me out of the stockade and I got a hold of whatever stuff I had left, my clothing, etc., the drums were gone because they had confiscated those because that's what I owed the money on. And what happened here? I go to the headquarters to get my final papers, you know, because I got somebody out front that's going to drive me. And I walk in, and the guy gives me my bad conduct discharge. I put it on a yellow piece of paper. You know, you're yellow or something like that, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Even though I was ready to knock the colonel, well, wow.
I'm glad that's not how the story is.
Anyway, when this guy says, here's your discharge, and I'm walking, he says, and you're not going to be able to get a job out there. I says, there wasn't no damn jobs out there before I come in here. And as I got closer to the door, he says, you got 10 minutes to get off this base. I said, what you going to do with the other 9 minutes? Boom. And I left.
up in Oakland. At
Well, I come
America.
back home to Oakland.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us, you've said many times that your, I don't want to put words in your mouth, awakening of sorts, right, happens at Merritt College, happens in large part because of what you began reading. Right?
Well, yes.
What were you reading that changed your
Well,
mindset?
that's an interesting story because you have to understand something. When they used to say, in those early days, they would say, Martin Luther King is a communist. I didn't pay no attention to it one way or the other, except that I had been raised off of that dumb television show called I Was a Communist for the FBI, you know what I mean? But then other people say, no, he's not a communist, you know. I didn't pay any attention to all of that civil rights stuff. I mean, I was in tech school. At this time, I was an engineering design major. I also had a full-time job at night at Kaiser Aerospace and Electronics in the Gemini missile program. I'm in a very high-tech world here. So this is what I love. I love this stuff. So, and boom. So I just accidentally upon a streetcar rally in front of Merritt College. 2 blocks this way and a couple of doors off the street, I lived across the street from Merritt College. So there's somebody over here, and later I'll tell you his name is Donald Ward. He's a lawyer nowadays, but he was holding down the street corner rally, 50 or 60 people standing around looking. The Afro-American Association is coming today to tell it like it is. This is the spring semester of 1962. Okay? I've been at Merritt College now for a couple of years. I've been working for Kaiser Aerospace Electronics for a couple of years. And I'm listening to these guys, and I see a guy who I know, who knew my buddy when we used to identify with the Lakota, Steve Brumfield. What it was, I said, William, how you doing? He says, how you doing, Bobby? Long time no see. And I hadn't seen him since I was 16. Now here I was, 26 years of age. And I said, are you part of this group here? He says, yeah. I said, it's Afro-American. What is this, some kind of communist stuff? Is that what this is? So Richard says, Bobby, of all people. I said, what do you mean of all people? I said, they used to call you a socialist. That's what your brother told me. I remember that. And he says, Bobby, who are the Sioux? I said, their name is not the Sioux, they're the Lakota. I said, you know that. Me and Steve told you about that. The word means cutthroat and has nothing to do with the real culture of our American Indian brothers, you know. And he says, well, we're not Negroes. This is why we say Afro. We're not Negroes. We're not Niggas. We're not any of the derogatory crap that made reference to us as black people. Just like Irish American or Chinese American and stuff, we are Afro-American. So we have a descendancy from Africa, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So because of that previous identification with the Lakota, and William here telling me that, I took back to give respect to what these guys were talking about. Well, in the street corner rally, several different speakers spoke, but in that, they started talking about some guy named Marcus Garvey who started a shipping lines. I didn't believe it. I said, no black man never started no shipping lines. What are you talking about? I didn't know this stuff, you know. And then they talked about Africa, the Songhai Kingdom, the Mali Kingdom, et cetera, and so on, the great complex social organisms, the Ashanti, and Western Africa, et cetera. I says, boom. So I said, hey, William, I says, what's a good book, man, that I can read, you know, about Africa? I says, I got to go to work, man. He said, go to the little bookstore there. He says, get Jomo Kenyatta's Facing Mount Kenya. I says, what? He says, Jomo Kenya, Facing Mount Kenya, it's written by Jomo Kenyatta. He says, and I'll see you some other time. So I bought the book, went to work, didn't have any engine frame, didn't have any exhaust housing for the Gemini missile program to inspect, got my smock on, sit at my desk, and started reading this book about Jomo Kenyatta. A young black man who left his people, the Kikuyu people, and went to England to get one degree, and came to America and got him another degree, went back and became significantly involved with organizing his people out from under the yoke of English colonialism. Jomo Kenyatta. Whoa! Damn, Tarzan does not run Africa. I mean, I make reference to these things, these movies and stuff, and what's being said historically, and then you start research. I mean, that kicked it. So the next day, I met Huey Newton on a handshake at that rally, because some little girl was goo-goo-eyeing at him. I'm going to mimic Huey for you. He was, therefore, we need to correct social science references to us as a people who are black people, African Americans, Afro Americans, and this is better than, of course, the derogatory references to us. So, you know, Huey was a pretty boy. We got three little sisters just standing there listening to anything. So William introduced me to him, you know, and that's why I really want a handshake. It would be some time later that I really got to know Huey. I got to know Huey really when I needed him, because I mean, during that period of study, I mean, once I read Jomo Kenyatta, everything. W.E.B. Du Bois's Black Reconstruction, Dr. Herbert Atwater's documentation of 250 slave revolts from 1800 to 1857. Dr. Herbert Atwater's other dissertative work dealing with documenting all the wars that African Americans have fought in this country and its history. I mean, Marvel J. Herskovits's work, Myth of the Negro Past is the title of his work, Marvel J. Herskovits. That work, I digested it. Then right around that time, Leroy Jones, now known as Amiri Baraka, published Blues People. Well, I'm a jazz drummer. I got a hold of that work and it blew my mind. With Marvel J. Hershkowitz's work, he had made reference to an African American who was a PhD who had done 12 years of field work to publish a linguistic work dealing with surviving Africanisms and Black American language, inclusive of the Gullah Islands off the coast of North and South Carolina. So when I got a hold of that work, and you have to remember, trying to get a hold of that work, it was published in 1949 after these 12 years of field research. So here it was 1962, 63, and I had to go find it. I found it at the University of California, you know. And of course I learned that I had to be matriculated there to check certain materials out, and boom, that's what I did. I got me a special library card, and this became my research stomping grounds. I found they had 26 different libraries at the University of California. That blew my mind alone. I mean, from the engineering libraries, you name it, it was there. And wow, I was flabbergasted that I could seemingly find anything in the world, seemingly. You know what I mean? This is what blew my mind. And I loved high-tech stuff. And I always took anthropology courses. I took every anthropology course at American College they had, all 5 of them. And I created later on Black American history and got it into the curriculum at American College. You know, 2 courses in Black American Studies and 2 courses in African Studies. I mean, we had a rally with Dean Olson, arguments with him, etc., blah, 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 blah. But finally we got it in, you know. I'm just saying that this is the period when I got involved and still on the Gemini Missile program. Right on up to the point of where John F. Kennedy was killed. And Malcolm X left the Nation of Islam. By this time, I'm so involved that I feel that I have to do something in the real grassroots community. This is what I want to do. I'm not married. Etc. We have a home, a family home right across the street from American College. This is where I stay. And I quit my engineering job after 3 years and 3 months at that period. And with that, I went to work for some research program at the University of California. And then another canvassing program, which was connected with some research effort. So I teamed up with, it was 6 of us students that started working together. 3 young white students and 3 black students. And while we were doing our canvassing work and sitting down at lunch and whatever, we got to know each other, we started talking about the need to end institutionalized racism in America. So we focused in on education. And we created one of the first youth jobs program in the city of Richmond. The city government of Richmond, which got to be a bit progressive here in the last few years, 2 years ago just gave me a proclamation for helping to create the first youth jobs program in 1963, 64 in North Richmond, California. I'm just saying, getting involved was a necessity for me, you know. But you have to, I've already been inspired by Martin Luther King. This was in late '62. You see, I'm leaving, I quit my job in '63. Dr. King came to speak at the Oakland Auditorium. And now I've been reading, etc., and now I'm truly interested in what he's got to say. And remember, I stopped going to church. My Aunt Zelma was the cause of that, really. My Aunt Zelma, my mother's twin sister, she had come to live with us at a period. And when I was 13, 12 or 13, I've never forgotten this. My Aunt Zelma, she's one of those kind of Christians gonna beat it in your head. You're going straight to hell. You're gonna burn in fire and brimstone. And she would tell you, and the way she would describe it to us as kids, it's almost like terrorizing our mind. But she says, you're gonna be down there in that fire, and that devil's gonna have that pitchfork. And that fire, them flames are gonna be burning you, and you're going, she would describe this. The problem with Aunt Zelma is she had other little personal problems. But one day, 12 years old or so, I'm in the back room, and her son is there. Me and him is 12 days apart, we were first cousins. And my sister, my brother, and 4 or 5 other kids from the community. So somehow or another, because I have these model planes, I have my model planes strung up in the room, you know, the P-38 and all that stuff. I built model planes back in those days. And I says, no it ain't, no it ain't. I'm arguing with the other kids and telling them what it is. I would read this stuff. It's 25,000 miles all the way around the earth. And then the earth take a 600 million mile trip all the way around the sun every 365 days. My little 12-year-old ass, I'm arguing, you know what I mean? and then the earth is spinning on its own axis at 1,000 miles an hour. And then, they say I'm busted in the door. Shut up that old science mess, boy. You going straight to hell. She called my head, twist my ear. I said, okay, Aunt Zelma, okay. It would be 6 months later that her church boyfriend brought her over. We all knew we was going to go to the San Francisco beach where Playland was. We used to have a Playland out here. And we came over, and we was in another car, whatever. But Aunt Zelma and everybody knew we was coming to the beach, and she came with her boyfriend. Well, we were over in the Playland area, and I'm watching some caricature of a laughing woman and blah, 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 or something. And the next thing I know, Aunt Zelma snatched me up. Come here, Bobby. She's walking me all the way back out of the Playland area, all the way across those wide streets, to stand out there. She said, what you see out there, boy? What you see? And she's pointing at the ocean. You know, I'm scared, Aunt Zelma. I'm going to knock you out. I say, the ocean, Aunt Zelma. You know what I'm talking about, boy? Can't you see that? It's flat, 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 flat. Anywhere you look, it's flat. You stop running around here talking about the earth is round, it ain't round, boy. Blow off that thing. You understand that, boy? I said, okay, Aunt Zelma, okay. Which I never succumbed to. I just say, later for Aunt Zelma. It is the basis of why I say today and have been saying, and when I headed up political education in the party, trying to get party members to understand, you got to make sure that your ideas, your beliefs, your understandings, your reasons, your notions, as much as possible, you got to make sure they correspond correctly to reality. In other words, Aunt Zelma's idea about the shape of the earth did not correspond correctly. So it becomes analogous to a history of human involvement, a lack of scientific or investigative understanding or reasoning that, you know, that many of us like. And Aunt Zelma was that. It wasn't, she she was concerned, but that was her way. She thought she was saving me from going to hell. That's what she was talking about, you know what I mean? Blah, 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 blah. But, wow, she was something. You see, when I married Marvel J. Hershkovitz's work, and got a hold of Dr. Lorenzo Dow Turner's work on surviving Africanism in black language, well, my conversation became to show people at Merritt College and a lot of discussions around the community. You know, we dropped, I found out why we dropped the T-H-E-R-A-R, rolling R sounds in black language. Not that we couldn't speak standard English if we had access to formal education. But black folks said this, that, them, yo, mo, and fo. Not this, that, them, your, more, and for. They dropped the T-H-E-R-A-R rolling R sounds. What Dr. Lorenzo Dow Turner proved in his 12 years of field research that there were no T-H-E-R-A-R rolling R sounds in the West African languages we had been descended from. And further, he went on to point out, we were denied access to formal education. So if you are 12 or 10 years old taken as a slave, your language abilities, inabilities, you know what I mean, is going to be based on you being, it's a forced acculturation process. So you have to speak this language this oppressor is telling you to, on the one hand, so you're going to drop your T-H-E-R-A-R rolling R sounds. Whereas old eugenics anthropology was saying we were naturally inferior, which is bull crap. You know, we know better than that. You know, when you see that bell curve book that was about trying to prove that black people was naturally inferior. Oh, when I ran into that and my love for mathematics, I mean, I did a paper trail on these guys to find out some of their very research was plain old simple interviews that were not IQ tests. You know, that they did all in Africa and various locations of the Khoisan people, so-called pygmies and so on, et cetera. You know, but my point is, wow, what am I trying to say?
You were saying how important education was.
Education, my education and my understanding, my realization in that period with the civil rights issues on the top of the burner. I mean, you have to remember the Black Panther Party, my organization, we popped up right in the middle of an already ongoing, high conflict, civil human rights protests and anti-war protests going on. That's when we popped up. We popped up that it was in something that was already there. The protest movement was moving 110 miles an hour, you know, down the track. And Martin Luther King and others, you know. For me, when Nelson Mandela was free, or put in jail in 1963, you know, that all played into me later that year, quitting my engineering job and doing grassroots work in the community. And me and these 6 students, we're the ones who created that North Richmond tutorial program, that youth jobs program, you know. Anyway.
We are running out of time already.
How more time?
I know, it's shocking, but we are. So I want to move into the Panthers as an organization, right? So you go through this process when you move back to Oakland. You meet up with Huey Newton, right? It's the era that you're describing. Let's talk a little bit.
What happened is that this.
We want the feel, yes.
How the Black Panther Party got started. The events that led up to it. Malcolm X was killed in 1965. I, Bobby Seale, that Sunday, by myself, with people looking over and want to know what the hell's wrong with me. I had a one-man riot. Only me. I was the only guy riding. You know, like 1, 2, 3, 4 business doors I kicked in with my boots. I threw a rock in another one with crocodile tears running down my face because Malcolm X had been killed that day. And I'm talking to myself and I'm talking aloud. Lyndon Baines Johnson and the race racist government to kill Malcolm X, which is what I believed. And then finally, my little crew came down to get me, so-called Revolutionary Action Movement. And I went back to the house, and then I made myself sit down and realize that I can't be running around rioting and shit. That's not the way to do nothing. So if I'm going to do something, and I'm arguing with these other guys. I'm calling them armchair revolutionaries. They don't do nothing. You know, all they do is read books and want to sit up and discuss shit. So and me, I'm a guy, once I get a lot of information and I want to do real things. Like set up a tutorial program that's real, a real program. It's like in designing, I did a lot of design for my father that had rooms and dens for people's homes and houses, you know. In other words, the blueprint is nothing but a theory, but the real building is real. You see what I mean? So you got to get from the theory to the practice. That was me. The Black Panther Party. See, I've been in the Afro-American Association about 3 weeks. I helped create the Afro-American Study Group. And then I left them and I went out and did work with the other students. And, you know, we created a youth jobs program and so on. Then I went to work for the city government of Oakland, California. I was working with the Department of Human Resources. I ran the youth jobs program in the North Oakland community. I think they had 4 or 5 of these youth jobs programs there. And I supervised some 120 kids, or youth, teenagers. And they hired me there because of my skills. They hired me because of all those skills I had. And I also taught them the African American people's history. You know, by then I knew my African American people's history back and forth and sideways and catacorn. I mean, I knew it and understood it, but articulate it, lay it down, get them to realize it, get a kid to understand why he said just that damn yomo and quote. When I got that, then next thing I know, his mama is there and saying, "Is that true?" I said, "That's why we say that. This is why. It's not that we can't speak formal English. It's that this is part of our." In other words, recognize your humanity. You're not inferior just because we speak like this. We are whole human beings. And then we came to an oppressive acculturation process. So that was in. One day, after Malcolm was killed, I tried to get Huey to understand that we need to start another organization. Huey was in law school here in San Francisco. It's a private law school, I think it is, San Francisco Law School or something. His father gave him the tuition to do something. But my point is that he would say, okay, he said, that's good. He says, but I don't think black people know enough about the African American history for us to be able to start a new organization. And he says, and anyway, I'm into the law school, and I'm into this law thing, and boom, 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 boom. So without Huey, I went and organized the Black History Fact Group at Merritt College. I had 16 brothers and sisters. At my house across the street from Merritt College, I already checked out a bunch of books and materials from the University of California and other places, and other stuff that I've accumulated. And we together, us 16, wrote 4 syllabus, 2 in African American Studies and 2 in Black American Studies, and went and got 200 people in the room, half as many people as in this room, to come and support us at Merritt College. Again, to get Dean Olson to do something. So that was done. And I changed the Black History Fact Group into what we call the Seale Students Advisory Council and registered on campus as a new organization on campus, Seale Students Advisory Council. And from there, I organized a rally to stop letting ourselves be drafted to fight in the war in Vietnam. 29% of all the people who were dying on the front line in Vietnam, we got this out of the regular newspapers, you know what I mean? Were dying on the front lines, but this country was not recognizing our constitutional, democratic, civil, human rights. You know, these are constitutional rights, you know what I mean? So why should we fight anymore? Let's not fight anymore in this dumb war in Vietnam. So when I organized that rally at Merritt College and packed that auditorium with 750, 60 people in there, every seat was taken. And it was a 3-4 hour rally. And I invited all kinds of speakers from different groups and organizations, you know, and our black speakers and other people with the African dances and our culture and stuff. And at the end of that rally, Huey Newton shows up, because I left a message for him to show. And he opened the side door, and I was on the stage. And I saw Huey, and I gave him a wave. So I closed the rally by reciting a poem called Uncle Sammy Called Me Full of Lucifer. Remember, this is an anti-draft, anti-war rally. You know what I mean? And it brought the house down. And it blew Huey's mind. And I came outside. He says, you organize all these people. I don't believe this. And he was shocked. I said, no, Hugh, I keep trying to tell you we can organize and put a new organization together. I said, we also got 200 people signed up for my new Soul Students Advisory. You got 200? I said, yes, 200 people signed up to be members. So he wanted to be a part of this now. So that's how he became enthusiastic. Well, 2 weeks later, Huey wants me to recite this poem up on Telegraph Avenue, down the street from, and at nighttime, we only went up there to do some research in some of the record boutiques on Howlin' Wolf and some of them old blues singers, you know what I mean? That's the only reason we were up there. Because some of the white kids up there, the record boutiques, had more old-time, past and present blues in their boutiques than some of the black record shops in the black community. Because what a lot of youth was recognizing, this was an authentic American culture, because it evolved out of America, in that context. I'm just saying, that's why we were up there. So later, we were walking down the streets, and he was trying to explain to another student who weren't there, you should have heard Bobby use this poem. Bobby, come on, recite your poem. So these people are walking up, hordes of people are walking up down the street, hippies, straight people, whoever, etc., on both sides of the street. I said, Hugh, I am not reciting a poem out here with all these people. We walked another block, come on, man. So we're in front of a little sidewalk kind of cafe. They got some chairs and tables out, and hordes of people are walking. I said, okay, Hugh. So I get by the parking meter. I say, Uncle Sammy called me full of Lucifer. Well, I don't give a good eagle-eyed McFleegle. And suddenly some big, tall, bushy-headed white guy gets up, because a whole lot of people stopped when I said this first line. And he's got a chair in his hand, and he's walking up, and he's got a big, giant rolled marijuana cigarette in his hand. He said, hey, man, I'm sitting there, and the people blocked you, man, I need to get the vibe. I said, okay, man. I stand on the chair, and I'm by the parking meter. So I started the poem over again, and as I started it over, I'm at the intersection. I see the Berkeley police car cruise in there, and I went on. Uncle Sammy called me full of Lucifer. Well, I don't give a good eagle-eyed McFleegle triple whammy damn for I feel this falsely would not serve. Uncle Sammy, don't shuck and jive me. I'm hip to popcorn jazz changes you blow. You know damn well what I mean. You schooled my naive heart to sing the red, white, and blue stars and stripes songs and declared eternal allegiance to all things blue, true, blue-eyed, blonde hair, white chalk, white skin with USA tattoos all over. And my soul trusted Uncle Sammy. Loved Uncle Sammy. I died in dreams playing war for you, Uncle Sammy. You jammed your emasculate manhood symbol, puffed with gonorrhea. Gonorrhea of corrupt, unreality to my ungreased nigger, ghetto, black ass, and my Jewish, Catholic, Hindu, Islamic Sioux. What? Sure, free public health, penicillin cure me. But Uncle Sammy, if you want to stay a freak show strongman God, fuck your motherfucking self. I'm not sir. Now. When I got off the chair, the crowd of people is 20, 30, 40, because they're really blocking the sidewalk. More. You said Louisa, I told you. So a little cop, he got a yellow t-shirt on and a little crew cut hair, blah, blah, blah. And he walks up to me and grabs my arm. He says, you're under arrest. I said, man, get your goddamn hands off me. You're under arrest for using obscene language. I never saw a badge or nothing, you know what I mean? I said, this is the University of California, brother. It's free speech. We won in the Supreme Court. I can say, fuck you. Fuck you, man. So, the uniform cop reached in, and he was wading through the crowd, and he grabbed my jacket, and then when I tried to turn around and see what's going on, my jacket comes off. Yellow T-shirt tackles me. Boy, when he hits me, his head hit my stomach and knocked the wind out of me. We rolled over on the ground, and 2 or 3 other undercovers get in there with him. They're all undercover police. I don't know this until then, but I don't even know it then. All I know I'm getting my ass beat. But anyway, he has a fight with the uniform cop. But finally, my brother, Weasel, 2 white left radical long-haired guys and an Asian guy kicked these other uniforms off of me. And then I pulled this knife out of my pocket. Now, you got some old right-wing who write about that piece of history. It says, Bobby Seale pulled out his stiletto switchblade. They used the word stiletto, I said stiletto. You know what kind of knife it was? In other words, if you went to my carpentry toolbox, you'd find this knife there. If you went into my machinist box, you'd find it. If you went into my sheet metal structural repair box, you'd find this knife there. You know the old scout knives, the 2.5-inch blade, corkscrew, ice pick. That's what it was. My point is, I cut this guy in the hand. Anyway, that put us in jail. We get bailed out. We wound up in front of Judge Stats, Alameda County Courthouse, and we get 1 year probation each. I thought we was headed to prison because Huey had the law book. He was in law school. You know, he can sentence us to 1 to 10 years for fighting police officers and blah, blah, blah. So Judge Stats gave us 1 year probation each because I blew on him. You know, anybody got anything late before sin? I says, Judge Stats, I work for the city government of Oakland, California. I work for the Department of Human Resources, job program, blah, 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 youth, blah, blah. And I got Huey a job there because he's in law school. Anyway, when I got to Judge Stats gave us 1 year probation. I went downstairs, and I said, Huey, when we got downstairs on the front porch, I said, meet me at the Warren Poverty office tonight. I says, what? I says, Huey, you and I, since Malcolm X is dead, has been off and on talking about the need to start another organization. It's been 1.5 years. Let's start the organization now. I said, all we did was take some notes in my house about this 10-point program we thought we were supposed to write. So let's do it tonight. So we walked in. After everybody's off of work, I had the burglar alarm key because I worked there and employed there. Me and Huey went into the office and we wrote that 10-point platform and program. I typed it out and pecked it out. Huey went upstairs in the legal aid law library. He found the California State Supreme Court ruling that said we had a right to stand and observe police officers. I, at another point, found the first 2 paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for any one people to dissolve the political bondage which have connected with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station in which the laws of nature, nature's God entitlement, with decent respect to the opinions of humankind, dictate that they should declare the causes which impel them to dissolve that political bondage. When a long train of abuses and usurpations pursues and invariably evinces a design to reduce a people under absolute despotism, then it is the right of the people to alter or change that.
Yes.
Now, nobody, wait a minute, let me say something. A lot of people don't take time to read and understand what that means. I mean, if John Wayne tell you, John Wayne was saying, when in the course of human, okay, do you understand it? No. I mean, Martin Luther King said it, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary. Well, I'm just saying, I chose that. Those first 2 paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence, paraphrase somewhat, to go at the tail end of our little 10-point platform and program, the true, specific founding documentation of our little organization called the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. It would be 1 year later that we got rid of the self-defense because we got tired of being compared to a paramilitary organization. I wanted us to understand that we're a political revolutionary organization trying to revolve more political, economic, and social justice empowerment back into the hands of the people.
Yes.
So that little 10-point platform and program, 1 point about full employment, 1 point about decent education, 1 point about the end to exploitation in our community, 1 point about free preventative medical health care, 1 point about an end to police brutality and murder of black people, 1 point about the right of all black men and women who've been tried by all white jurors to have a right to another trial because they have not had a fair trial, another point about fair treatment in repeal legal institutions, summing it up with we wanted land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace. Now, what are we talking about here? We're talking about basic, everyday human rights. And then what evolves with our organization? The slogan called all power to all the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. Right on, right on. Do you remember 3 or 4 years ago that the PG&E electric company was using our song? We called them up and told them. This song by the Black Panther Party. They had used it over 6 months to a year. And suddenly the song is gone. But I'm just saying, next person.
We do actually have a short 2-minute-long student video with clips about the current political climate that I do want to get queued up so we can move into a present-day conversation. But before that, I want to ask just one big question.
Yeah.
Which is, what do you think the legacy of the Black Panthers will be, is or will be in days and years to come?
The legacy of the Black Panther Party will be, not only according to me, but with this year, in October, this 2011 year, the new National Alumni Association of the Black Panther Party, which will be composed of 1,000 former Black Panther Party members, including Congresswoman Bobby Rush, including Congresswoman Barbara Lee. Most people don't know that Barbara Lee worked for the Black Panther Party 5 years. She would tell you herself, she was one of the committees when I started voter registration in 1968, where I used to put crews in demographic areas to register people to vote. She would tell you that. So I'm just saying, it is the Alumni Association, the progressive, we had a profoundly progressive movement. We didn't allow no racist crap. We said all power to all the people. We didn't care whether you were black, white, blue, red, green, yellow, or polka dot. What we were mostly concerned about is where your heart, mind, and soul was at. Yes. Whether you're going to hitch your wagon to the human liberation struggle. And this is what it was about. I don't know, I'll ask you a question.
You answered it.
I did?
You did.
Wow.
And quickly.